Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Oh, please. Good morning. Let's go back to September 29th, 2006. That's when Petty Officer Michael Mansour is a United States Navy SEAL operating in Ramadi, Iraq. Mansour is standing on a roof in Ramadi, and he's standing in front of a doorway to this roof. He has two Navy SEAL teammates lying in the sniper-prone position next to him. They've already taken AK-47 fire and a rocket-propelled grenade, but they're not exactly sure where the enemy is. There's a bit of a lull in the fighting. Insurgents have blocked off the streets in Ramadi, and there's someone on the loudspeaker in the town mosque yelling, "Kill the Americans!" As Mansour and his team are looking for the next attack, an insurgent from an unknown location throws a grenade up on the roof. It hits Mansour in the chest, and it falls to his feet. Due to the length of the throw, there's no opportunity to pick it up and throw it back. He has only a split second to make a decision. He can leap through the doorway behind him and save himself, but if he does, his two teammates lying on the roof will surely die. Mansour yells, "Grenade!" But instead of jumping backward to save himself, he jumps forward, chest first, onto the grenade. It detonates. 30 minutes later, 25-year-old Michael Mansour is dead. His two teammates lying on the roof receive only minor injuries because Mansour's body muffled the blast. One of the survivors said at Mansour's funeral, "Mikey looked death in the face that day and said, 'You will not take my friends, I will go in their stead.'" I've never seen a United States president cry until April of 2008. That's when President George W. Bush invited Mansour's parents into the East Room of the White House to give them their son's Medal of Honor posthumously. The president couldn't even get through the citation without breaking down. Since then, Mansour's high school in Garden Grove, California, built a new stadium. They named it Michael A. Mansour Memorial Stadium. The golden trident insignia that the SEALs wear dominates the 50-yard line. January 2019, North Island, California, just outside of San Diego, the United States Navy commissioned the USS Michael Mansour, the newest guided missile destroyer in the fleet. This is Mansour's mother, Sally, being escorted onto the ship, named in honor of her fallen son. Now, why did they do this? Because Michael Mansour literally sacrificed himself to save his friends. There's no greater love than to sacrifice yourself to save your friends, said Jesus of Nazareth before he went to the cross. Michael Mansour sacrificed himself to save his friends. The question is, would anybody sacrifice himself to save you? And the answer is, someone already has. His name is Jesus of Nazareth. But in today's culture, a lot of people don't think the story's true. They think it's invented. After all, it was written down by religious people, and we know religious people tend to embellish things, so how could we even trust a story like this? Secondly, it's got miracles in it. We don't believe in miracles anymore. How many people in here have ever seen somebody rise from the dead? Yeah, neither have I. Yet our entire worldview, our entire faith is built on believing something that none of us have ever seen. How rational is that? Well, I actually think it's easy to show that Christianity is true. You only need to answer 4 questions in the affirmative to show that it's true. In other words, if you investigate these 4 questions, I think you'll realize that the answer to these 4 questions is yes, And if the answer to these 4 questions is yes, then Christianity is true. What are the 4 questions? Here are the 4 questions. Now that is some pretty grooving music, isn't it? Yeah. That is actually from our TV show, which is on every Wednesday nights on DirecTV channel 378, or on Roku. If you have Roku, it's NRB TV, National Religious Broadcasters. If you don't have DirecTV, you don't have Roku. It's streamed on our app and our website at that time. We're also on radio, a bunch of stations around the country, but it's also podcasted. The podcast is called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And what we do is we present evidence for Christianity and we cross-examine ideas against it. That's based on our website, crossexamine.org there. Now, why are these the 4 questions? Truth, God, miracles, and the New Testament. By the way, this is going to serve as our outline here today and tonight. We're going to do point 1 this morning, and then tonight, points 2, 3, and 4. But why are these the 4 questions? First question, does truth exist? Why is that important? Because you hear people saying there's no truth. You got your truth, I got my truth. All truth is relative. You ought not judge. You hear all these claims, right? Well, if there's no truth, then Christianity can't be true. Of course, if there's no truth, then atheism can't be true either. In fact, if there was no truth, would you ever go to school? Would you ever come to church? No, you wouldn't. So we're going to deal with that question this morning. Of course, there's truth. Second question. Does God exist? Obviously, Christianity can't be true if there's no God. Tonight, I hope to show you that there really is a theistic God. What's a theistic God? That's a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, moral, personal, intelligent creator who created all things and sustains all things to this very moment. Tonight, we're going to look at 3 arguments for this being. These arguments are taught in the Bible, but you don't need the Bible to know them. In fact, tonight we're going to establish point 2 without any reference to any religious writing. Third question, I should say, are miracles possible? Obviously, Christianity can't be true if miracles are not possible. But I hope to show you tonight that not only are miracles possible, but the greatest miracle in the Bible has already occurred, and even atheists are admitting the data for this miracle. We'll see that tonight. Then we're going to get to the key question, is the New Testament true? The New Testament doesn't have a prayer if there's no truth, no God, or no miracles. But if truth exists, if God exists, if miracles are possible, then we can see if the evidence from the New Testament is reliable enough for us to conclude that one particular event from the ancient world took place, and what would that event be? The resurrection, right? If Jesus rose from the dead, game over, Christianity's true. Of course, if he didn't rise from the dead, game over, it's false. You might as well sleep in on Sunday and do what you want the rest of the week, because if Christianity isn't true because the resurrection hasn't occurred, then your faith is in vain, as Paul wrote to the church at Corinth. If Jesus hasn't risen from the dead, your faith is in vain. Now, we're only going to try and touch on point 1 tonight, this morning, and points 2, 3, and 4 we'll cover tonight, and hopefully get to your questions. I know Pastor Josh said we'd do Q&A tonight. Actually, we're not going to do Q&A tonight. We're just going to do all Q, no A. All right? So everyone gets to ask a question, and it takes all the pressure off me. Now, we'll do Q&A later tonight. Now, even tonight, we're not going to be able to go into great detail. So if you text the word evidence to this number, 855-909-0582, I'm going to send you the entire PowerPoint presentation in a PDF format. The one I'm going to use this morning and tonight, in fact, I'm going to send you more than I can even cover because there's a lot of data here. So text the word evidence to that number. I'll put that number up again tonight. If you do want to get a book or a DVD set, the DVD is 7 hours long, goes through all this material in a lot more detail than what we can even cover here. It's on the book table. I'll be at the book table later. And I want to point out that all the proceeds from the sale of the books and the DVDs will go to feed needy children. Mine, okay? Just so you know. I got 3 sons, so I need some help, all right? Now, we're going to go through this very quickly. So I'm originally from New Jersey, which means I speak at 150 words a minute with gusts to 350. okay? So you're not going to be able to keep up. You cannot listen in Southern, all right? You're going to have to speed up your ears here because we're going to plow through this. Now, some of you are probably thinking, wait a minute, Frank, why would we even do this? Why would we even try and give evidence that Christianity is true? Shouldn't we just have faith? Actually, no. And I'll explain this here in a minute, but the Bible talks about having a reason for the hope that you have. For example, this is just one of many verses. Always be ready to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give you the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. Now, the gentleness and respect thing is hard for me because I am originally from New Jersey, but we're supposed to give evidence as to why we believe what we believe. And so what we're going to do this morning is just start here at point 1. Does truth exist? Are you guys ready to go? All right. Whenever you start talking about truth, you always have to start with Jack Nicholson. Right? Because Tom Cruise had him on the witness stand and he said to him, Colonel, I want the truth. And Nicholson said, Mission City Church. No, he didn't say it that way. If he said it that way, the movie would have gone nowhere. You can't handle it. That's not how he said it. Here's how he said it.
I want the truth.
Oh, I need sound. Oh, we got to start over. Hold on. Keep the sound up back there. You guys ready? Here we go.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
All right, you got it now? Let's try it again. I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Now, didn't that feel good? Didn't that feel great? I mean, we can go home now, can't we? I mean, that was just great just doing that, all right? Well, there's a lot of people who can't handle the truth. They're saying, you got your truth, I got my truth, all truth is relative. Well, if you don't get anything else out of what we talk about here this morning or tonight, this is going to be the most important thinking skill we're going to talk about. And it's so important that half of what you need to know in order to defend the Christian faith, you'll already know if you get this thinking skill down. And it's so simple. Look, I was 33 years old. I already had a master's degree, and I didn't know what I'm about to show you what a dimwit I was. And it's so simple once you get your mind around it. What is this thinking skill? Well, the best way of showing it to you is to give you an example of using it. If someone were to say to you something like, there is no truth, you should ask that person a question. What should the question be? Yes, if somebody says there's no truth, you're going to say, hey, is that true? Is it true that there's no truth? Because if it's true that there's no truth, the claim there is no truth can't be true, but it claims to be true. Did I say that right? This is known as a self-defeating statement. What's a self-defeating statement? A self-defeating statement doesn't meet its own standard. A self-defeating statement violates the law of non-contradiction. For example, if I were to say I can't speak a word in English, what would you say? Yeah, you just use English to say it. Or if I were to say my parents had no kids that lived. Like, what would you say? Like, this is a self-defeating statement. You're here, right? Or my brother is an only child. Or everything I say is a lie. Some of you will get that tomorrow. Or all generalizations are false. Some of you will never get that one. All right. These are known as self-defeating statements, and you really got to get good at identifying self-defeating statements because half of the battle in discovering truth is being able to discover what is false. Because if you can discover what is false, you can avoid that, and you can concentrate on what is true. If you start living by false principles, one day you're going to smack up against reality, and it's going to hurt. And there's so much in our society that's false. You have to learn how to identify these false claims and false statements. And here's how you do it. What you do is you turn the claim on itself. Turn the claim on itself. So if somebody says there's no truth, you turn the claim on itself and you say, is that true? All right, let's do a few more of these. How about suppose someone says there's no such thing as absolute truth? Is that an absolute truth? Or you might want to say, are you absolutely sure? You see, this is an absolute truth claim, claiming there's no such thing as absolute truth. It's self-defeating. Or sometimes it's said this way, all truth is relative. You've probably heard that, right? If somebody says all truth is relative and you turn the claim on itself, what are you going to say back? Is that a relative truth? No, this is an absolute truth claim, claiming that all truth is relative. It's like saying I can't speak a word in English. Now, sometimes it's not said that way. In our culture, it's often said this way now. There isn't the truth, only my truth. You've probably heard people say that. You have your truth, I have my truth. Live your truth. It's so Oprah, isn't it? Just live your truth. What do you say to somebody who says this? If you turn the claim on itself, what are you going to say to somebody who says this? This is also self-defeating. It's just a little bit more subtle. If somebody says there isn't the truth, only my truth, simply ask them, is that just your truth or the truth? Because if this statement up here is just your truth, in other words, it's just your personal opinion, then why should I believe it? You don't have anything behind it. It's just your opinion. But if it's the truth, you just got done saying there's no the truth. So you're defeating yourself. Because this is a the truth claim, claiming there are no such thing as the truth. Are you with me? You know the real truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, there's no such thing as your truth or my truth. There's just the truth. I mean, you might as well just say, I have my own math. You know, in my world, 2 + 2 = 12. No, sorry. There's not my truth or your truth, there's just the truth. You say, well, there's truths that just apply to me and not to you. Like what? Well, my name's Bill, or my name's Julie, and Frank, your name's Frank. Yeah, it's objectively true, however, that your name is Bill or Julie and my name is Frank. Yeah, those truths just apply to you, but it's objectively true your name is Bill or Julie and my name's Frank. It's still objectively true of what your name is for all people at all times in all places. So yes, we understand that certain truths only apply to certain things, but they're still objectively true. And this whole idea that you just have your truth, and you have to follow your truth. You have to brook every stream. You have to swim every river. You have to climb every mountain. Is that some kind of Disney movie? This is nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. Don't follow your heart. Follow the truth. If you follow your heart, you're going to wind up in deep, deep trouble if you don't bracket it by right and wrong. The heart is deceitful and wicked. Who can know it? Solomon says, guard your heart because everything you do flows from it. It doesn't say follow your heart. It says guard your heart because your heart can lead you astray quite easily. Now, sometimes it's not even put this way. Sometimes it's put this way. It's true for you, but not for me. You've probably heard that too, right? Well, Christianity may be true for you, but Buddhism's true for me. What do you say to that? If somebody says it's true for you, but not for me, say, hey, is that true for everybody? Is true for you, but not for me, true for everybody? Because it's true for you, but not for me, is true for everybody. Then true for you, but not for me can't be true because it's true for everybody. Did I say that right? I know that can give you intellectual constipation if you think about it long enough. But that's because it's self-defeating. It's like saying I can't speak a word in English. Actually, there's a more fun way of dealing with this. If somebody says it's true for you but not for me, say, sure, go try that with your bank teller. Yeah, go to your bank teller one day and say, I'd like $100,000 out of my account. The bank teller looks at your account and says, I'm sorry, you only have $6.12 in your account. It's easy to get the money. You simply say, ha, that's true for you but not for me. Give me the $100,000. Are you going to get the money? No, if it's true there was only $6.12 in your account, that's true for all people at all times in all places when referring to your account at that time. It's just true. By the way, I go to a lot of churches. I normally ask people, do you think Christianity is true? And most people will say, yes. And then I'll ask them, why? Do you know what answer I get more than any other? Because I have faith. Is that a good answer? Does your faith change whether or not something's true? Does your faith change whether or not God exists or Jesus rose from the dead? No, your faith doesn't change a thing about those things. I mean, do you have to believe something to make it true? Do you have to believe in gravity to stay on the ground? Do people who don't believe in gravity float away? Hey, look, there's another one. Hey, if you believe, you'll come back. No, that's not the way it works. You say, why is the Bible always talking about faith then? Because there's two kinds of faith. There's belief that, and then there's belief in. Belief that is getting evidence that Jesus rose, or that God exists, that Jesus rose from the dead, that the Bible's telling the truth. That's called apologetics. It doesn't mean you're saying you're sorry. It means you're giving evidence for what you believe, and it comes from a Greek word in 1 Peter 3:15, the verse I had up there earlier. Give a defense. But all the belief that in the world won't get your moral transgressions forgiven. For that, you got to go from belief that to belief in. to trust in. You can know that Christianity's true and not trust in Jesus. In fact, the demons believe that. James, the half-brother of Jesus, who wrote that little book in the New Testament called, this is a sharp church, Pastor Josh. Yes. James says even the demons believe that God exists, but they tremble. Do you know that the demons know that God exists better than we do? They know that it's true, but they don't trust in him. Why? They don't want to trust in him. There's a difference between belief that and belief in. Belief that is of the head. Belief in is not only of the head, but of the heart. By the way, we know this in relationships, don't we? There's a difference between belief that and belief in. There's a difference between knowing that someone would be a good spouse and actually trusting in that person to be a spouse. When I first met my wife 37 years ago, I got evidence that she would be a good wife, but all the evidence in the world didn't make her my wife. I had to take a step of trust in her to ask her to be my wife. And in a momentary lapse of judgment, she said yes. That's the difference between belief that and belief in. Now, most of the time when the Bible's talking about faith, it's talking about belief in. It's saying, after you know that it's true, trust in Jesus to be your Savior. But faith isn't blind. The real definition of faith is trusting in what you have good evidence to believe is true. Trusting in what you have good evidence to believe is true. After you know that Jesus is the Savior, trust in him. That's why we have to know belief that, and then we have to go on to belief in. Now, how about this? You're going to hear this a lot, too. There's no truth in anything but science. You've probably heard this claim, right? If you turn the claim on itself, remember, that's what we're doing here. We're turning the claim on itself. What would you say to somebody who says, there's no truth in anything but science? Turn the claim on itself. Yeah, simply say, hey, is that a scientific truth? Can you go in the laboratory and prove this claim? No, that's a philosophical claim. You can't prove that by science. That's not a scientific claim. That's a philosophical claim. And you can't do science without philosophy. Science is built on philosophy. In fact, when you get a PhD, what does a PH stand for? Not phenomenally dumb. It stands for philosophy. Philosophy of physics, philosophy of biology, philosophy of history, whatever it is. In fact, in the book out there, Stealing from God, Why Atheists Need God to Make Their Case, we have a chapter on science. Here's the title of the chapter. Science doesn't say anything. Scientists do. You ever notice why you have conflicting advice on COVID? Why is there so much? People say follow the science. Which science? Why do I say science doesn't say anything scientists do? Because all data needs to be gathered, and then all data needs to be interpreted. And who does that? Scientists do that. And sometimes they come to different conclusions. Why? Because maybe they have different data, so they come to different conclusions. Maybe they have the same data, but they interpret it differently. Sometimes they have inadequate data, but they come to a conclusion anyway. Sometimes it's political. No, that'll never happen. Are you kidding? Science doesn't say a word, ladies and gentlemen. Scientists say things. And you need to look at the philosophical motivation sometimes to figure out why they're coming up with different conclusions. So that's what that book talks about quite a bit. By the way, if you think about this, the most important things in life have nothing to do with science. Okay? Honey, do you love me? Yeah. Why? I don't know. Let's run an experiment. No. All right, how about this? You've probably heard this quite a bit too. You should doubt everything. You guys are picking up on this turn the claim on itself thing, right? What do you say to somebody who says that? Hey, should I doubt that? Hey, why are skeptics skeptical of everything but skepticism? You ever notice that? They don't doubt that. They don't doubt doubt. They think doubt's a good thing. Now, how many people in here sometimes doubt that what you believe is true? Whether you're a Christian, atheist, anywhere in between. Look, if you don't have your hand up right now, you're probably not thinking very much. I mean, come on. I've written books on this stuff, and sometimes I wake up in the morning and I go, I don't even know if this is true. Ever do that? But then I start thinking about my doubts, and I realize that most of my doubts, they're emotional. They're not intellectual. In other words, the evidence for Christianity is really good. If I'm having a good day, everything looks fine. Bad day, don't know. Good day, fine. Bad day, don't know. Good day, fine. Bad day, don't. What's changing, me or the evidence? Me, I'm going up and down. The evidence doesn't change. In fact, sometimes we do this presentation quite a bit on college campuses. Or is it campi? I don't know. Anyway. And we'll have a microphone set up like we'll have for tonight during the Q&A. And if an atheist gets up to the microphone, I'll normally stop and ask them a question. If they express any hostility at all, I'll say, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? I've had atheists stand in front of that microphone in front of hundreds of people and say, no. Wait, I thought you claimed to be reasonable. I thought you claimed to be rational. How is it rational that you wouldn't believe something if it were true? Well, it's not. It's not a head problem. It's a heart problem. They don't want it to be true. And they're using these pseudo-intellectual doubts to hide the fact that they really don't want Christianity to be true. They don't want there to be a God. Why? Because they want to be God of their own lives. See, they're not on a truth quest. They're on a happiness quest. And before we clap about this, ladies and gentlemen, we Christians do this a lot too, right? We suppress the truth about inconvenient parts of Christianity that we don't like, don't we? And so we have to be honest to say, are we going to follow the evidence where it leads or not? And by the way, sometimes at these college campuses, if I see somebody who is now an atheist, they might say, you know, I used to be a Christian, but I lost my faith. No, I don't mean to be unkind, but sometimes I am. And I want to say to them, when they say, I lost my faith, I want to say, so? Are you telling me because your psychology changed that God has somehow popped out of existence? Are you telling me because your psychology has changed that Jesus didn't rise from the dead? Do you know that your psychology will not tell you whether or not something's true? Not just about Christianity, but anything. Your psychology will not tell you whether something's true or false. The evidence will. You know, there's a lot of people that are scared to death to fly. Psychologically, they can't fly. Newsflash, safest way to get anywhere, right? That's what the evidence shows. But psychologically, they can't deal with it. But your psychology will not necessarily tell you the truth. The evidence will. So if you're having doubts about something, hey guys, I almost doubted what was going on here. If you're having doubts about something, then you should start doubting your doubts if the evidence is really good for what you're doubting. And the evidence for Christianity is really good for what you're doubting. So, if you start doubting your doubts, then you're back to knowing something for sure. Have you guys ever thought about doubting your doubts? I doubt it. Come on. The last one we got to deal with is this one. Because you hear this all quite a bit. You ought not judge. Somebody says you ought not judge. What should you say to them? Yeah, say, hey, isn't that a judgment? If we're not to judge, then why are you judging me for judging? You ever notice that? You say, wait a minute, Frank, didn't Jesus say don't judge? Nope, he never said it. Sure he did. He said it in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1. All right, I know this is going to sound a little odd for a second, but it's really true. There are no verses in the Bible. There are no verses in the Bible. You think when Matthew was writing the biography of Jesus, which we call the Gospel of Matthew, that he said, here's chapter 7, verse 1? No. The chapter and verse divisions were put in about 500 years ago to help us navigate the text, which is a good thing. I mean, can you imagine if Pastor Josh got up here one Sunday morning and, if we didn't have numbers in the Bible and he said, okay, let's go about 2/3 of the way in. Let's see if we can find the same spot. No, we go, you need numbers. The problem is we tend to think if it's got a number in front of it, we can take it out and make it say whatever we want. Notice Jesus didn't stop at judge not. What did he say? He said, judge not, lest you be judged by the same standard you judge others, you be judged by that standard. So before you try and take the speck out of your brother's eye, which is a judgment, notice, take the log out of your own eye first, you hypocrite, which is another judgment, you notice. Then you'll be able to better help your brother. Is Jesus telling us not to judge here? No, he's telling us to take the speck out of our brother's eye. That involves making a judgment. He's simply saying, get that problem out of your life first so you can better help your brother. So this is not a command not to judge. It's actually a command on how to judge. Don't judge hypocritically. If you've got that problem, fix it, then go help your brother. But it would be completely ridiculous to say don't make judgments. Number one, it's a judgment itself. And number two, you'd be dead already if you didn't make judgments. I mean, you made 100 judgments this morning just getting over here. And now you're wondering, was this a good judgment? Should I have come to hear this crazy guy? What is going on here? Everybody makes judgments. Atheists make judgments. What judgments do they make? Well, there's no God. Christianity's not true. Jesus didn't rise from the dead. These are all judgments. They also judge there's no objective meaning to life. Life is meaningless. When you die, you're just going to become worm food. Have a nice day. These are all judgments. The question isn't whether or not you can make judgments. The question is, are your judgments true? I will say this, though. Jesus did save a very stern rebuke for people who were judgmental. And who were the judgmental ones in his day? Pharisees. And who were the Pharisees? They were the religious and political leaders of Israel. They helped run Israel. The Roman authorities delegated much of the day-to-day political lawmaking authority to the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, and the Pharisees, some of them were on that council. They were the religious politicians of their day, and Jesus went after them. Are you telling me Jesus got involved in politics? Yes! And he wasn't so nice doing it. In fact, if you think Jesus was a sweet guy who's never said a bad word about anyone, you have not read John chapter 2, John chapter 8, or Matthew chapter 23. What happens in John chapter 2? Jesus makes a whip and he goes and he jacks people up in the temple. What, sweet and gentle Jesus did this? Yes. And then in John chapter 8, he's having an argument with these same Pharisees. He gets to the point in the conversation where he stops and he says, your father is the devil. Jesus, you can't say that. That's not very Christ-like. Excuse me, I am Christ. Can you imagine you're having an argument with somebody and you say, your father is the devil? Never try that with a sibling, by the way, okay? And then in Matthew chapter 23, he's scolding these same Pharisees. What does he say to them? Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Oh, you look great on the outside. You're whitewashed tombs. But on the inside, you're full of dead men's bones. You go a mile to make a convert, and then once you make them a convert, you make them twice as much a son of hell as you are. How will you avoid being condemned to hell? What? Sweet and gentle Jesus said this? Yes, Jesus was not Barney. Can't we all get along, boys and girls? No! I came to bring a sword. It's going to divide mother and daughter, father and son. Read the text for yourself. Jesus was not a 60s hippie child. He was tough. In fact, he was killed for being tough. You notice that? Number one, he claimed to be God. That's blasphemy to the Jews and sedition to the Romans. And number two, he spoke truth to power, particularly the temple authorities who knew they would be out of business if Jesus succeeded. In fact, Caiaphas knew that Jesus had resurrected Lazarus from the dead. And immediately after that, he said, it's better that one innocent man die than the whole nation perish. He knew that Jesus was the Messiah, yet he still wanted him dead. Because Jesus was going to interrupt his little business. So Jesus was tough. Don't buy into this idea that Jesus was wimpy. By the way, one other thing I've noticed about judging. You ever notice that when you compliment somebody, which is a judgment, nobody gets upset? You know, if you say to your best friend, I really love you. You're such a wonderful person. I wish I could be like you. You think your friend's going to say, well, who are you to judge? Right? No one's going to say that. I've noticed that people don't have a problem with judging. They just have a problem with judgments they don't like. In fact, if you tell somebody something that's true and they get mad at you, you just help convict them. As Augustine said, we love the truth when it enlightens us. We hate the truth when it convicts us. For you military people in here, and by the way, I was in the Navy for 8 years, which stands for never again volunteer yourself. Okay? You always get more flack when you're over the target. If you're telling somebody something that's true and they're shooting back at you, you're over the target. They don't want their evil deeds exposed. As Jesus said, men love darkness rather than light. So everybody makes judgments. The only question is, are your judgments true? And can you make judgments without being judgmental? Evangelism is just one beggar showing another beggar where the food is. That's what we ought to be doing. All right, we got to wrap up here because the music's playing. You can hear it, right? So can everybody, all I want to point out with this section right here, can everybody see that this statement right here shoots itself? Everyone got that? And all the other statements we just went through, they're all self-defeating. If you turn the claim on itself, you can show that there really is truth, and it's self-defeating to say there isn't. Now tonight, this actually is from a college campus, we're going to cover the rest of this information, and we're going to do Q&A. We will do Q&A. We're going to cover, does truth exist? Does God exist? Are miracles possible? Is the New Testament true? And then we'll take your questions. And as we'll see tonight, the best news of all this is that someone actually did die for you. And he didn't just die, he also rose again. All right. So Heavenly Father, I thank you that you've given us evidence that you literally came into this world, added flesh to your humanity, lived a perfect life, allowed the very creatures that rebelled against you to torture and kill you so you could remain just, yet also justify us. That you could take our punishment on yourself, and then by us trusting in you, we could not only be forgiven, but we could be given your righteousness. I pray you'd all bring us back tonight so we could see the rest of the evidence that you truly are who you say you are. In Christ's name, amen.